Okay, we're now doing the final video in the Philosophy 2 unit. It covers religion and science, and it's for the OCR GCSE RS exam board. First thing we've got to look at is the scientific theories about the origins of the world and the scientific theories about the origins of humanity. Now, the current leading theory for the origins of the world would be the Big Bang theory. You may have heard of this. This is the theory that all matter that makes up the universe and the stars and the planets that we know of today all originated from a single highly dense point. And as you can see in this diagram, that is this point here. And essentially what happened is it was an explosion, and all of that matter was thrown around into what became the universe. Now the evidence that supports the Big Bang at the moment is something called the red shift. And red shift is essentially, you may want to look into this a bit more detail, but it suggests that the universe is expanding just as an explosion does. And the way it does this is that it allocates, say for example, if we were to look at this, might not be able to see it that well, but this, what appears to be spiral galaxy right here, this emits light, and the redshift method sort of picks up that light and puts it on a light spectrum. The further away this moves, or the further to the side, or wherever it moves, the light travelling to the redshift will change. There's reasons for that. If you want to look into that, by all means go ahead. But basically, this is on the redshift spectrum. It will pick up these movements, and this is happening today now. And this would suggest that the universe is expanding because it shows that galaxies and stars are moving away from each other. Now, so that's the origins, the scientific theories about the origins of the universe. We've now got to look at the scientific theories about the origins of the world. Now, all of this matter that is thrown about in the Big Bang will end up in many different places, and one of these places is where the Earth is today. And all of this matter and dust and particles and things will bump into each other and cause something called electrostatic forces of attraction. And these electrostatic forces of attraction will cause things to clump together almost in little heaps and almost like little balls and clusters of particles. And when big enough, these clusters will eventually gain something called a gravitational force. When something is big enough to have a gravitational force, it will cause things smaller than that object to pull towards it. And you can sort of get the idea from there that, say for example, this ball of rock here, it is going to start drawing in these little bits around it, and eventually it will create something like this. There's a link for you down here. Please do follow this, okay, because it's only a 1-minute video about just clearing up about how science believes that and evidence suggests that the Earth began. Please do follow that. Moving on now, we've got to look at the scientific theories about the origins of humanity. Now, you may have seen this before. This is a picture dictating the process of evolution, and it sort of starts off with the idea that we have an ape, and this ape experienced a change in genetic material through a mutation, and that then created this chap here, and that mutation happens again, creates this one, and it happens again, creates this one, and so on until we get to man. Now, theory of evolution, as many people say, was thought of by a chap called Charles Darwin, and he did contribute greatly, but there was another chap that whose name I've actually forgotten now. I think it was someone Philip. Oh no, sorry, I can't remember. But if you follow this link here, this is a bit longer than the 1-minute video I had before, but this is a nice documentary explaining a bit more about evolution and a scientist that contributed greatly to it. And I wouldn't watch this just yet, but it will certainly be worth sitting back and relaxing to after you've finished revising this video. But basically, you need to know that evolution suggests that life began with a single cell, and from there the cell actually evolves or develops through a process called natural selection. I'm sure you would have heard of that in your biology lessons. And there's another link here. This, please do watch. Just covers evolution in a bit more detail. Now we've got this chap here called Philip, I think that's pronounced Goes, but he was a geologist, and he said that all the fossils that we find that are evidence for evolution and evidence that kind of goes against the creation story of Christianity's theories about the origins of the world and humanity. He suggested that all these fossils and evidence were actually placed there to test our faith in God, and he said that they were placed there by God. And there are people that go by this concept, and they are called creationists, and they are people who take the Bible very literally and absolutely deny any evidence that is out there for evolution or scientific theories about the origins of the world or humanity, and they say that all this evidence that is found has been put there by God to test our faith. Now we've got to look at the Christian teachings about the origins of the world and humanity. There are two accounts. There are two accounts of Genesis in the Bible, and these are the two that you need to know that teach the origins of the world and humanity. Okay, there's the first account, and this is the more ideal one to get to grips with. It goes in a lot more detail. And the first account of Genesis, I'm sure you would have probably seen this quote before. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, Roman Catholics teach the concept of, I believe this is pronounced ex nihilo, and this is the theory that God created the world out of nothing. And there's also another Christian view that suggests that God created the world out of matter that was actually already there. So this goes against the ex nihilo view, and this quite nicely ties in with the problem of evil that we were dealing with in the previous video with good and evil. And this would be that if God created the world out of nothing, then he must have chosen to put evil in the world, because if he had clusters or matter to make the world with and evil was already in there, it's kind of not really his fault that the world has evil, because he didn't choose to put that evil in that cluster of stuff and matter. But in the sense that he has created the world out of nothing, then it raises the issue that, hold on, there's evil has been formed out of that nothing. Obviously he created that nothing, so therefore he created the evil to put into the world. What's going on there? And we've also got the view that if he did actually create the world with matter and all that, yeah, maybe it wasn't his fault that evil existed, but if the belief that all of God's creations are good, then why didn't he remove that evil from the cluster and matter of things that he made the world with? There's also something that you need to take into account with the book of Genesis, teachings of the origins of the world and humanity, and this is that God created the world in 6 days, and that humans and animals were created on that 6th day. The second account of Genesis, in a little less detail, this goes along the lines of the humans were made before the plants and animals, and the only real contradiction here is that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realise that in life humans actually need plants and other animals to survive. So how can we have been made before the plants and animals? There's no way we'll be able to live. Now we've got to also go into detail of the relationship that holds between scientific and religious understandings of these origins of the world and humanity. Now the main problem or issue with this relationship between the science and religion views of the understanding of origins of the world and humanity comes from the fact that Christians, they believe the Bible to be the exact word of God. Not all Christians do, but many do, and therefore it's going to cause a bit of a struggle to reconcile with the contrasting differences in the scientific discoveries about creation. This chap here, however, called St. Augustine, he suggested that we can get by with this relationship in that he suggested that in the beginning of the creation story, God potentially he only actually created the germs or the forms of life. Maybe he only created those single-celled organisms that were mentioned in evolution. Now, some creationists, however, they say that this chap here, James Ussher, who was a 17th century bishop, is correct in saying that the creation began at exactly 9 o'clock AM, 26th of October, 4004 BCE. Now, James Ussher, 17th century bishop, he found out this information by taking the Bible to its most extreme literal points, took all of the dates, all of the accounts within the Bible, and eventually came to the conclusion that this is when the world was created. This is in the belief of creationists the origins of world and humanity. And the issue here is for the scientific understandings, in that this is actually billions of years after the creation point that science gives. Now, other Christians who may not be creationists, they have actually managed to get by with this relationship by accepting the creation story to be a myth. Now, a myth is like a story, but it's a myth. It's a story that contains important truths. In this case, God is the one responsible for creating humanity in the world, but it's not actually factually based. Okay, so the creation story is not word for word, this is what happened. It's just like a nice little story that sort of sums up, okay, God made us all. Might be one, two riddles in there, but all in all, it's not word for word, this is what happened, facts and facts sort of thing. And this would go along the lines of that the relationship would now suggest that science explains how something would happen and religion would explain why something would happen. And this why, science would explain how the creation began and religion would explain why it began, the why being God. And just going to leave you off again with another one of St. Augustine's theories, is that he said there's actually no problem here at all between the relationship of scientific and religious understandings of the origins of the world and humanity, because God must have created time with the creation of the universe. Therefore, he created the universe outside of time. Now, if he created it outside of time, then this would mean that there's no issues here at all, because many people believe that science can only account for what has happened at the point that time began. So anything outside of time, science has no evidence to prove at all, in many people's opinion. Now, we also need to look at the place of humanity in relation to animals. In Genesis, again, Genesis is a key thing for this topic. We learn that humans are given power over animals, and that God actually tells Adam to name the animals. Therefore, many Christians infer from this that because God has given us this free will over animals, whether this be as we please or in a cruel manner or through stewardship, we can essentially do what we want with animals. Now, there's also been this consistent debate in Christianity about whether or not animals have souls, and it appears through the Bible that when God breathed life into the nostrils of Adam, this essence of life that was given to animals appears to be something different. And don't forget to mention St. Francis of Assisi and the many Christians that believe his view that animals do have a soul. This comes in quite nicely with contradictions in your question E. Now, in Luke 12:6, let's also not forget this one, we learn that Jesus teaches that God loves humans as well as animals. Okay? That's something you want to take into account. Now, also, many churches have spoken out about the way we treat animals, whether this be through animal testing or general cruelty. And these churches have been known to be the Methodist Church, the Church of England, and the Quakers. Now, this is quite a mouthful if you want to try and remember this name for the exam, but Father Lanfranco Serini, he said, and many Christians abide by this, so this can be one Christian view that you may evaluate or go into detail with in the exam. He said that every act of human irresponsibility towards creatures is an abomination. Now, coming up to the end now, we've got to look at the concept of stewardship and other religious teachings, these religious teachings being Christianity, relating to environmental issues. Now, just before we start, we've got to go through a few definitions, and for example, we've got to look at what a steward is. A steward is someone who looks after something for someone else. We've got a dominion, and dominion means to have authority or control over something, and domination. And domination means exercising this power, this dominion, this authority or control over something over the less powerful being. Now, Christianity teaches that God gave humans dominion, this authority and control over creation, but he did not give us domination. And this would this notion of almost like a caring notion, not to exaggerate this power that we've been given, could stem from the idea of stewardship. And stewardship is quite a keen aspect of Christianity that you may want to discuss in the exam. We've also got in Genesis 6:9 to Genesis 8:22, the story of Noah's Ark is told. Now, if you don't know what Noah's Ark is, it's basically God floods the world, I believe to rid the world of sin, and he asks a chap called Noah to build an ark to save himself and his family, himself being Noah, not God, but the ark also had to be suitable to fit the planet's animals onto it. So this also is a stewardship aspect of looking after animals for the world, for God, and many Christians have adapted this philosophy to care for animals. We've also got in the Old Testament the teaching that we should care for the land, and this environmental issue coming up here will cover deforestation. And the quote goes about that we should not destroy trees by putting an axe to them, because you can eat their fruit. Now, this is quite open to many literal Christians to be able to completely deny this, or literal people to completely deny this, and it will go along the lines of questioning, so what if the trees did not have any fruit? Would that then be okay to destroy it? Because this reasoning of don't destroy the trees or cut them down with an axe because we can eat their fruit, therefore is pointless. And a bit more, even more literal questioning could go along the lines of, so does that mean it's okay to cut down trees but without an axe? Because the quote goes, do not destroy its trees by putting an axe to them. So, you know, if you were strong enough, would it be okay to almost punch them down with your bare hands because you're not using an axe? And also other people in Christianity have been taught that they should only take from the world what they need. So these being like your necessities of food and all that, and they shouldn't be concerned with material wealth. And the environmental issue in question here is the mining of fossil fuels. And because fossil fuels, you know, they're very key for development in countries, and essentially at the moment it's the most, probably one of the most we'll ever find, efficient energy sources out there, and this is all material wealth sort of thing that we that Christianity teaches we shouldn't be concerned about. Finally, final slide now, I'm just going to look at Christian responses to environmental issues, and here's a little timeline for you. Okay, I've got the 1800s over here, 1900s up to the year 2000, and the first response to environmental issue in Christianity could stem from the 1845 origins of the Harvest Thanksgiving, and this Harvest Thanksgiving is to show care and thankfulness in the environment. Now this would suggest that one Christian response to environmental issues would be to almost like praise the environment and sort of, you know, take care of it in a stewardship manner. And you may remember, if you went to a Christian primary school, if you were doing like harvest festivals and things where you brought in those tin cans of vegetables and what have you, and your bread and all that, that is the Harvest Festival. We've also got in 1988, this is quite a mouthful, I don't blame you if you don't want to use this in the exam because it's quite a lot to remember, but the 1998 Papal Encyclical Solitudio Rei Socialis states that the goods of the earth and the beauties of nature are to be enjoyed and celebrated as well as consumed. Now this would be a rather interesting Christian response to the environment, because it would suggest that, yeah, okay, go ahead and dig for those fossil fuels, but try and do it in a clean manner. Okay, we want to try and care for the environment, but you know, it's okay to consume these fossil fuels. These consumer goods are almost like a necessity now in today's society. So go ahead and do that, but at least, you know, care for the environment if you can. And in 1998, final point, and the final point of this slide as a whole, we've got the European Christian Environmental Network. You can quote this in the exam as the ECEN. In 1998, this was founded to help engage a broad range of environmental work, a more wide range of caring for the environment. Okay, that's me done now, and that was my final video for RS as a whole in GCSE RS. I hope you use my videos to your advantage as much as you can.